Good morning, students. Today we are going to start with the next chapter, that is chapter 16, Electronic Payment Systems. These are the discussion points which we are going to discuss in this video. So first, we are going to see about what is an electronic payment system. So various types of e-payment methods available, and to learn the basics of the card based system, what are all the types of card based systems, payment systems available, and electronic account transfer, and electronic cash payment system, and the last one is the mobile payment and the internet payment systems. First, we will start with the introduction. So every day people buy or sell goods and services for money. So money becomes the major medium of exchange in the today's world. So later some payment systems were developed out of a need to facilitate the growth of the commerce and the economic development. So most of the payment systems were developed to mainly to facilitate the growth of the commerce and the economic development. And the media used for transferring the value of money is very different, and it is very more, and the ranging from the use of simple payment instruments like cash, and to the use of complex system also, even the cryptocurrency. So starting from the cash till the cryptocurrency, the media is used for transferring the value of money. So it is, there are more methods for transferring the value of money. So physical money, that is the cash, is the traditional and the most widely used payment method that the consumers use, so in their daily lives, to buy the goods and service. The physical money, that is the cash, they use the most widely used payment instrument. So as the volume and the variety of transactions expands, the volume of money also get expanded. So using cash for each of the large transaction is neither feasible or practically possible. So neither feasible nor practically possible for large transaction with the cash, the physical money. So security and transportation problems arise in cases where large amount of cash transactions are involved. So banks would support in such cases by offering other payment methods. So the cashless society has been discussed for long time with the Reserve Bank of India, and the avoiding the cash and checks could not be suddenly stopped. So some of the people may use the old habits. So some people do not hesitate for adapting the new things. So these are the reasons. So next we see about the definition. So definition: an electronic payment system is a financial arrangement, so the which consists of an intermediate for providing the transfer of money substitute between whom, the payer and the receiver. So sometimes it is also called as a liquidation, or a clearing system, or a clearing service. So there are various terms used. So it confirms the transfer of the value from one object to the another. So and also plays a major role in the modern monetary systems. So that is the electronic payment systems advantages. And the modern payment systems may be physical or electronic. So, and each has its own procedures and protocols that helps the financial institution, the banks, with the payment mechanisms and the legal systems. So standardization has allowed some of these systems to grow to globally. And the payment system is an essential part of a company's financial operation. So but it becomes more complex when many different payment systems are used. So further, the challenges came from the continuous introduction of newer payment systems such as Paytm, UPI, Bitcoin, and various mobile payment options. So whenever the payment option gets more increased, the complexity also get increased in the security related issues. So as a result, there are more than 750 payment systems throughout the world, currently they are using. So this is about the introduction of the electronic payment system. Next, we see about the classifications of the electronic payment methods. So what are all the various types of methods with respect to the electronic payments available? So many electronic payment methods have been developed with the advancement in the internet technologies. So based on the value of money transactions, processing time and processing requirements, even the security issues and the usability of that particular electronic payment systems, the electronic payment methods are divided into two types. So they are micro electronic payment system and macro electronic payment systems. First, we see about the microelectronic payment system. So it is an online payment system mainly designed to allow efficient and frequent payments of small amounts. So here, in order to reduce the transaction cost, so in order to keep the transaction cost very low, here the communication and the processing cost are minimized here in this method. So in macro electronic payment system, they use expensive public key cryptography, whereas here in micro electronic, they use lightweight cryptographic procedures, and even they use offline payment verifications also. So as a security of micro electronic payment system is comparatively low, and also it could be overlapped. It could be overlapped, but the cost of the fraudulent activity is much higher than the possible value that to be gained by the fraudulent activities. So the security in micro electronic payment method is considered to be adequate. So there are more number of security methods available in this microelectronic payment methods. So the majority of microelectronic payment systems were designed to pay for simple goods on the internet. Say for example, subscription of the online games, for reading journals and for listening to a song like or for watching a movie online. So all these subscriptions, they used to pay some small amounts, and also for paying the simple goods on the internet. So in general, the users involved, the parties involved in the micro online payments are customer, service provider, and the payment processor. So these are the three parties involved in this micro payment system. So the micro payment system can be easily explained in a way that, say for example, the customer proves his authentication. He proves himself that he is the legitimate user. So customer proves his authentication, and the payment processor issues the micro payments. So customer pays the micro payments to the online service provider and gets the requested goods or service from them, and service provider deposits the micro payment received from the customer to the payment processor and gets the money for the particular or provided service or provided goods. So the microelectronic payment systems work on the basis of simple cryptographic algorithms. So already we have told that. So based on the algorithm used, it can be classified like the hash chain based microelectronic payment system, hash collisions and hash sequences based microelectronic payment systems, shared secret key based microelectronic payment system, and the last one is probability based microelectronic payment system. So the based on the cryptographic algorithm used, these are the four types of microelectronic payment systems. And the next one is the macro electronic payment system. So macro electronic payment system support payment for higher value. The security requirements are more needed in macro electronic payment system because of the huge money transactions. So bank will impose a minimum transaction overhead on a micro payment systems. These transactional overheads for the usage of the processing expensive cryptographic operations and prevent these payment system to be used for the payment of small amounts. So some of the popular macro online payment systems are card based systems, electronic account transfer, and electronic cash payment, and the last one is mobile payment and the internet payment system. So for transferring huge amount or a huge value, these are the methods can be used in the macro electronic payment systems. And next one is the card based payment systems. So here the payment cards which we use are the plastic cards that enables the cashless transaction or cashless payments. So they are the simple embossed plastic card. The details will be embossed in the printed in the plastic cards and which authenticates the card holder on behalf of the card issuing company, that is the bank. So based on the transaction settlement method, there are three widely used card payment methods, the card payment systems. That they are credit card payment system, where we pay later after the purchase. So debit card payment system, we will be paying at the time of the purchase, and stored value card payment system is we will be paid before the time of purchase. First, we will see about the credit card. So credit card is an electronic payment system normally used for retail transactions. So a credit card makes the user, the bearer, to buy the goods or services from a vendor, from a shop, based on the card holder's promise to the card issuer. The card issuer is a bank. So to pay back the value later with an agreed interest. So based on the agreed interest, the value will be paid later. So based on the cardholder promise, the payment will be made at the time of purchase by the bank. The bank will lend the money to the customer. So every credit card account has a purchase limit set by the issuing bank or the firm. So a credit card is different from the debit card. Already we told that the credit card issuer lends money to the customer. Instead of deducting the amount from the customer's bank account instantly, they lend money to the customer. So there are some advantages of credit card available. So most of the credit cards are accepted worldwide. And second one is, it is not necessary to pay physical money at the time of purchase. And the third one is, depending on the card, there is no need to pay annuity. So some of the card will have some facility like no need to pay for the annuity. So next one is, allows purchases over the internet in installments, that is the EMI. So some of the credit card will support the EMI payment facility. And some banks will allow the user to round up the purchase price and pay the difference in cash to make the transaction easy. So some banks will allow the round up facility. So these are the advantages of the credit card. So next we see about the key players in the operations of credit card. So first one is the bearer. So that is the card holder. So the holder of the credit card account, who is responsible for the payment of invoices either in full or in portion of the balance. So the rest occurs the interest and carried forward. So this is how the credit card holder pays the bank. And next one is the merchant. So the merchant, that is the storekeeper or a vendor who sell or providing the goods or service. So receiving the payment made by its customer through the credit card. And the third one is a acquirer. So merchant's bank. So we call it as a acquirer. The merchant's bank, that is responsible for receiving the payment on behalf of the merchant, sending the authorization request to the issuing bank. So through the appropriate channel. So the bank communication will be done from particular channels only, like a particular mode they will be transacting from bank to bank. And the fourth one is credit card network. So it acts as a intermediate between the banks. So from this network only, that we called as a appropriate channel. So this credit card network is called as a some particular channels will be available for transacting between the bank. So it acts as an intermediate between the banks, the company responsible for communicating the transaction between the acquirer and the credit card issuer, that is the merchant bank and the issuer bank. So these entities operate the networks that process credit card payments worldwide. and levy interchange fees. So example, Visa, MasterCard, RuPay. So all these are the credit card networks. And the last one is the issuer. So that is the bearer's bank. So the issuer bank that who issues the credit card and set limit for the purchasers, decides the approval of transactions, issue invoices for the payment, and charges the holders in case of the any default, or and offer card linked products like insurance, additional card, and rewards plan. So all these are done by the issuer, that is the bearer's bank. So these are the key players of the credit card. The next one we are going to see about the anatomy of a credit card. So how the credit card will look like, what are all the dimensions, so what are all the content that are available in the credit card, that we call as a anatomy of a credit card, a detailed study about the credit card. So all payment cards including debit card are usually plastic cards. So the size of the plastic card will be 85.60 mm width and the 53.98 mm height. So this is a standard width, and the rounded corners will be there with the radius of 2.8 mm to 3.48 mm, and the card thickness will be 0.76 mm. So these are the standard dimensions that are maintained universally based on the standard. So that standard we call it as a ISO/IEC 7810 hash ID1. So this is a standard number or the standard name. Based on this standard, universally it is maintained. These dimensions are maintained. So next we see about the what are all the content that will be available in the credit card. So first one is the publisher. So that is the bank name, emblem of the issuing bank. So along with the subcategory or the scheme, if any. And second one is the credit card number. So the modern credit card number has 16-digit unique identification number. So each and every credit card will have its own number. So the number will consist of 16 digits. So the first digit of the credit card is the major industry identifier, that is MII. So it identifies the issuer category. Say for example, 1 for airlines and 4 for banks. Like that, there are various categories, issuer categories available. So based on that, the first digit will be mentioned. And next 5 digits uniquely identifies the issuing organization. And the first first six digits together called the issuer identification number or bank identification number. So whatever may be, the based on the category, the issuing organization, it identifies the issuing organization, both combines to form a issuer identifier number, that is IIN, or bank identification number, that is BIN. And the next 9 digit are the account number. So account number will be printed, and the last digit is a check digit. So it will check based on the Luhn algorithm. So it is there is a certain algorithm. Based on that algorithm, the last digit will be printed. So it we call it as a check digit. So third one is a name of the card holder. So it is visibly embossed on the, it is just printed or embossed on the front side, additionally stored on the magnetic strip. And some cards like gift cards do not hold any name. Likewise, this credit card will emboss the card holder name in the front side. And the fourth one is the EMV chip. So EMV stands for that is these are the three companies, that is a Europay, Mastercard, and Visa. So these are three companies. They have created a integrated chip in addition to the magnetic strip to store the card holders information. So you can able to see it will look like a SIM card. So the EMV stands for Europay, Mastercard, and Visa. So these three names correspond to the name of the companies which are responsible to develop this technology. So it is mainly categorized into chip and signature and chip and pin. So there are two types of chip available, that is looks like a exact SIM card like. And next one is a RFID symbol. So you can able to see the RFID symbol the below the credit card, name of the credit card. So it is a four curved lines. So it radiating rightwards, similar to a tilted Wi-Fi symbol. So the Wi-Fi symbol is just turned towards right. So like that it looks like. So it indicates that it is a contactless smart card. So this card doesn't hold any contact. Likewise, this RFID symbol identifies. In case if the symbol is not there, means this card holds the contact information of the card holder. So next one is the expiration month and year. It is visible on the front side and also stored on the magnetic strip or the chip. So in both these places the details will be stored. The card is valid until the last day of the month printed on it. So and next one is seventh one is a card brand logo. So you can able to see the logo. So mostly it will be a MasterCard or RuPay or Visa, whatever may be. So it is the name of the credit card network company. Visa and MasterCard are leading credit card network companies. So RuPay is a Indian domestic open loop card launched in 2012. So before that, Visa and MasterCard was a famous company. So after 2012 in India, they have developed a open loop card with the name called RuPay. And next one is the eighth one is a magnetic strip. So the magnetic strip, it is an iron based magnetic material containing the encrypted data about the card holder and the account number. So a black color strip will be available at the back side of the credit card. So almost all the cards, debit cards, even the store value gift cards, all the cards will be available. And ninth one is a hologram. So hologram is a security feature that prevents the duplication. So it is a three-dimensional image formed by a interference of a light beams. So you can able to see the in the at the rear of the that chip, EMV chip, the rear side of the EMV chip, where the three-dimensional image formed by a interference of a light beams. And the 10th one is a signature. So it is a card holder signature at the back of the card, that is below to the magnetic strip, and used as an attempt to identify the card holder's identity. And it also holds the last four digits of the card number. And the last one is the CVC or CVV, that is card verification code or card verification value. So it is a three digit code usually printed to the left of the signature pane. So and it also validates the card. The CVC2 is used in contactless transactions. So in contactless transaction, the CVC2 is used. So apart from these mentioned, each credit card may also hold the issuer's disclaimer, address and phone number. So that is apart from these common things. So each and every card may have the may have the issuer's disclaimer, address and the phone number at the bottom of the card. And the next one is a debit card. So debit card is also an electronic payment card where the transaction amount is deducted directly from the cardholder's bank account upon authorization. So some verification is to be done. Generally, debit cards functions as a ATM card and acts as a substitute for the cash. So the way of using the debit cards and the credit card is generally same, but unlike credit cards, payments using a debit card are immediately transferred from the cardholder's bank account. So instead of them paying the money back at a later with added interest, they pay immediately. So in the modern period, the use of debit card has become so widespread. More number of usage has been done with the help of the debit card. So the debit card and credit card are identical in the physical properties. So it is difficult to differentiate these two by their appearance. So unless they have the term credit or debit in printed in the card. So currently there are three ways for processing the debit card transaction, that is the electronic fund transfer, payment on service. So that is the EFT POS, also known as online debit or PIN debit. And next one is the offline debit. So it is also called a signature debit. And the last one is electronic purse card system. So these are the three ways of transaction or processing the debit card transaction available currently. And next one is a stored value cards. So stored value card is also a type of debit card. So where the amount is preloaded. So it has a preloaded with a certain amount or value with which a payment is made. So it is a card that has default monetary value onto it. So based on the available monetary value or the amount, the payment can be or the purchase can be done. So the card may be disposed when the value is used or recharged to use it again. So when the value is finished means, when the value is over means the amount gets zero means the card can be disposed or it can be recharged to use it again. And the major advantage of the stored value card is that the customers don't need to have any bank account to get the prepaid cards. So that is the main advantage of this stored value cards. So like a credit card or a debit card, it is similar, it is a plastic card and has a magnetic strip on its back. So the magnetic strip stores the monetary value of the card, and the stored value cards may not have the cardholder name because the sum of the card may have, and it is also indistinguishable from a regular credit card or a debit card in appearance. So it differs from the credit card or the debit card in the appearance. So what look like a credit card or debit card acts like a credit card or debit card. So it is used to make purchases offline and online in the same way as we do in the credit card or in the debit card. There are two varieties of stored value cards available. So one is the closed loop, it is mainly for single purpose, and next one is the open loop, that is for multi-purpose. So closed loop cards, the money is metamorphically stored on the card. It is temporarily stored on the card in the form of binary coded data, and the closed loop cards are issued by a specific merchant or the merchant group, and also it can be used to make purchases from a specific place. Say for example, the Chennai Metro Rail travel card, it can be used only in Chennai Metro Rail. So in no other places the card can be used. So that is the meaning of the closed loop store value cards. And next one is the open loop. Open loop cards can be used to make debit transaction at various retailers. So it is also called as a prepaid debit cards. It can be used anywhere the branded cards are accepted. Say for example, Visa gift cards. So it can be accepted in any retailer shops. So that is the meaning of the open loop store value cards. And next one is the smart card. So the modern version of the card based system is the smart card. So smart card, along with the regular features of any card based system, it holds a EMV chip. So the Europay, MasterCard and the Visa chip. This chip is similar to well known SIM card, as already said in the credit card anatomy. So it looks like a SIM card in appearance but differ in its functionalities. So the advantage of the smart card, it can provide the identification or authentication, data storage and application processing. For all these functionalities, this EMV chip is mainly used. And the smart cards can be classified into two, and they are the contact smart card and another one is a contactless smart card. So the contact smart cards have a contact area of approximately 1 square centimeter, which comprises that the several gold plated card contact pads will be there. So these contact pads provide electrical connectivity only when inserted into a reader. So nowadays most of the debit cards and credit cards have this facility. So which is also used as a communication medium between the smart card and the host. That is the point of sale. The host here is the device. And next one is a contactless smart card. So it is empowered with the help of the radio frequency induction technology. So unlike the contact smart cards, these cards require only near proximity to an antenna to communicate. So with the nearby location, the device, the cards can be accessed. So the smart cards, whether they are contact or contactless, do not have any internal power source. So that is the main thing. They don't have any internal power source for storing or recharging the EMB chip, or for storing the data, or for processing the application. So instead they use a inductor to capture some of the interrupting radio frequency signal. So they use an inductor where it receives some of the nearby radio frequency signal, and also to rectify it, and the power the cards the processes. So the power the cards process. So the power is required is or acquired with the nearby radio frequency signal. So that's how the contactless, both the contactless and the contact smart card works. Next, we are going to see about the electronic account transfer. So apart from card-based payment systems, there are many alternative electronic payment systems available. So with the growth in the computers and the network technologies, even in the electronic communication, a large number of alternative payment systems has been developed. So these include the electronic clearing services, or the electronic fund transfer, and the real-time gross settlement. So these are the most frequently used the electronic payment systems. So these electronic payment systems are most updated in tendering of the cash in both in domestic and the international transactions. First, we see about the electronic clearing services, ECS. So electronic clearing service can be defined as a repeated transfer of funds. So from one bank to multiple bank accounts, or the opposite. So with the help of the computer and the internet technology. So transferring of funds from one bank to multiple bank accounts. Here the payer instructs the bank to debit from his bank account and credit it one or more payee bank account provided amounts and dates of the payments earlier. So this is how the ECS works. So this system provides a convenience of paperless payments. So some of the advantages of the system, the ECS, are the bulk payments and the guaranteed payments, and there is no need to remember any payment dates. So all the payment dates are set earlier. So it can be used by the institutions for making payments, such as disbursing of salary, giving the salary, or a pension, or dividend interest among the shareholders. So for all these, the ECS is mainly used. So similarly, individual bank customers also can make small value repetitive payments, such as paying EMI of a loan, or paying electricity bills, telephone bills, insurance premium. So all these payments are done with the help of this electronic clearing services. So ECS can be used for both credit and debit purposes. So that is for making bulk payments or for bulk collection of amounts. The ECS credit is mainly used for making bulk payment of amounts. So in this ECS credit, a single account is debited and multiple accounts are credited. So like providing or giving salary from an institution, the single account is debited and multiple accounts are credited. So these transactions are called as the push transaction. Say example, if a company has to pay salary to its 100 employees means it can use this ECS credit system than crediting every employee's account separately. So likewise this ECS credit is used. So next one is ECS debit. So the ECS debit is an inverse of the opposite of the ECS credit. So it is used for bulk collection of amounts. So in this mode the multiple accounts are debited and then it is credited to a single bank account, that is opposite of the ECS credit. So this type of transaction are called pull transaction. So example, the insurance premium of bulk number of customers is debited from the customer's bank account on their particular concern and paid to the insurance company. And next one is a electronic fund transfer. So now currently this name is a National Electronic Fund Transfer. Currently the naming is NEFT. So the EFT is now used as a NEFT. So the electronic fund transfer is a electronic transfer of money over an online network. So the amount sent from one sender's bank branch is credited to the receiver's bank branch on the same day in batches in a group. So in a group the amounts are sent from one bank branch to the another bank branch. So unlike the traditional process, EFT saves the effort of sending a demand draft through a post and waiting for the delay in reaching the money to the receiver. So banks may charge commission for using this particular NEFT services. So EFT, the electronic fund transfer, is widely used method for moving funds from one account to another, and it is mainly used in the business to business models. And the next one is a real time gross settlement, RTGS. So RTGS is a payment system particularly used for settlement of transaction between the financial institution, especially the banks. So the transaction between two banks is done with the help of this RTGS. So as the name indicates, so it is a real time gross settlement. So RTGS transaction or process at the real time. So the RTGS payments are also called as a push payments that are initiated or triggered by the payer bank. So the RTGS payments are generally large value payments, such as high volume transactions. So the RTGS transactions are unconditional and also irrevocable. So unconditional means the beneficiary will receive the funds regardless of whether he fulfills his obligation to the buyer or whether he would be deliver the goods or perform a service of a quality consistent with the order. Based on that, the transaction or the funds transfer will occur. So and the next one is irrevocable. A correctly processed transaction cannot be reversed and its money cannot be refunded. So the so-called settlement finality. So that is why it's called as a irrevocable. And next one is the electronic cash payment system. So it is a currency that flows in the form of data. So it converts the cash value into a series of encrypted sequence of numbers. So and those numbers are used as a serial numbers to represent the market value of the various currencies in reality. So the cash value is first converted into a sequence of numbers, encrypted sequence of numbers. So and those numbers are used as a serial numbers to represent the market value of any shares or various currencies in reality. So this is the e-cash, electronic cash. So under this electronic cash, so we have two types, that is a cryptocurrency and other one is a electronic wallet. So first we see about the cryptocurrency. So people have always valued unique and irreplaceable things. So a unique thing will always have a demand and it has more price. A cryptocurrency also is a unique virtual, that is a digital asset designed to work as a medium of exchange based on the cryptographic algorithm. So using the encryption technology. So encryption technology means uh, converting some known information into a unknown form, so unreadable form. So that we call it as a encryption. So based on the cryptographic algorithm, this cryptocurrency is a unique digital asset, so mainly used as a medium of exchange. So this cryptographic algorithm secures the transaction. So it secures the transaction by recording it in a blockchain and controls the creation of any additional units of the currency. And the cryptocurrency is also called as a crypto coins or e-cash, that is electronic cash, or alternative currencies or virtual currencies. Also all these names define the term cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency can be defined as a distributed accounting system, so based on the cryptography. So cryptography is a encryption algorithm. So it stores the information about the state of ownership in a conventional units. So in a conventional units. So the units can be easily converted, and the state of ownership of a cryptocurrency is related to the individual system blocks that we called as a portfolios. So some detail about the individual system blocks. So block is a group. So only the holder of the corresponding private key would have the control over a given portfolio, and it is impossible to issue the same unit twice. So only one block will have one unit. So that unit will not be repeated again. And the function of the cryptocurrency is mainly based on the following technologies. So Bitcoin, altcoins, mining, and blockchain. So Bitcoin is the term cryptocurrency began to be used after the appearance of the term Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the most popular and the first decentralized cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin payment system was developed in the year 2009 so by a group of people. So by a group of people, and the SHA-256, it is the algorithm name. They have given the name cryptographic algorithm. The hash function has been used as a algorithm for this Bitcoin. And later folks like Namecoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Gold, and many others has been developed. And Bitcoin is a most popular cryptocurrency, and even there are many other cryptocurrencies are there which are referred to as altcoins. So currently more than 1300 cryptocurrencies are listed. So over special cryptocurrency stock exchanges, though these cryptocurrencies and e-cash concept is mainly used in the stock exchange. And many cryptocurrencies operate on the basis of the same source code, so in which the authors make only few minor changes, so for another upgradation, so like a time, date, and distribution of blocks, and the number of coins used, like that. So they use only few minor changes, and they upgrade the upcoming cryptocurrencies algorithms. And these currencies are called as a fork. So in fork, both cryptocurrencies can share a common transaction history in blockchain until it gets splitted. So until it get separated from another blockchain. So likewise, the fork is defined. And next one is a altcoins. So altcoin is a collective name for all cryptocurrencies that appeared after Bitcoin. So after Bitcoin, what are all the name used for cryptocurrencies, they group it as a common name as a altcoins. So the earlier altcoins like Litecoin and Namecoin appeared in the year 2011. So their miners sought to overcome a number of problems inherent in Bitcoin. For example, Litecoin has a higher transaction rate. So likewise, after the Bitcoin, the developed cryptocurrencies faced many disadvantages. And even the Namecoin was developed to build alternative route for the domain name system servers. So likewise, they faced so many problems, and many altcoins are inherently very similar to the bitcoins in characteristics and also in the structure, in the definition of the cryptocurrency algorithms. And next one is the mining. So the cryptocurrency units are created by the solution of the some particular encryption task. That encryption, that cryptographic task, we call it as a mining. So the miners not only generate new monetary units, but also they start the new transaction to the blockchain. So as a reward, they will receive a new Bitcoin. So like that, they rotate the transaction and create the new transactions to get a reward for new Bitcoins. So in terms of trade, so the creation of cryptocurrencies may be related to the initial coin offer procedure. So that is the ICO, the initial coin offer, is aimed at the gathering the initial capital necessary for the further development of the system. So for further developing, they gather or they create new coin offers. So that is the initial coin offer. So it gathers the initial capital that are necessary for the further development. So after that, they create a new concept in the new process. The initial value of the cryptocurrencies or the cryptographic currency is just cost of consumed electricity. So after that, they started gathering the initial capital that are necessary for further development. So initially, the value of the cryptocurrency is just the cost of consumed electricity. So the secondary value is determined by the demand. Based on the demand of the cryptocurrency, the secondary value is determined. And the last one is the blockchain. So blockchain are an open distributed book that which holds the record of transaction of the cryptocurrencies between two parties, any two parties, in a efficient and a verifiable manner. So that is the main aim of the blockchain. So the blockchain, once recorded, the data in any given block cannot be altered without the alteration of all the subsequent blocks. So all the blocks will be connected together. So in case if any record to be changed, any data to be changed in the block which is in between, it cannot be changed. Once all the subsequent blocks has to be altered, then only the data can be corrected. So likewise, that much of secured, highly encrypted technology is used in the blockchain. And the next type of cash payment, electronic cash payment system, is e-wallet, electronic wallet. The e-wallet, or we call it as a electronic purse, so allows the users to make the electronic transaction quickly and securely. So over with the help of the internet, it may be a smartphone or the systems, whatever may be. So the electronic wallet function almost the same as a physical wallet, the normal purse, the wallet which we have. So both contains the money. So both holds our money. The most of the e-commerce websites uses this e-wallet. So say for example, PayPal or SBI Buddy or Paytm wallet, whatever may be. So all these belongs to the electronic wallet. And next one is the mobile banking. So mobile banking is another form of net banking. So the term mobile banking, also called, we can also call it as a m-banking. So it refers to the services provided by the bank to the customer to conduct the banking transaction with the help of the mobile phones. So these transactions include the balance checking, account transfer, payments, purchases. So all these transactions that are directly related to the bank can be done with the help of the mobile and the internet technology. So the transaction can be done at any time and anywhere. So the WAP protocol. So the WAP protocol is installed on a mobile phone. So the WAP protocol is nothing but wireless application protocol. The wireless application protocol is installed on a mobile phone that qualifies the device through an appropriate application So the appropriate bank application for mobile session establishment with the bank's website. So the application will get connected with the bank's website directly through the web protocol. And in this way the user can able to connect with the bank with the option of permanent control over the account, and the remote management of his own account in the which is related to the which is tied up with the bank. So mobile banking operations can be implemented with the help of the contacting the call center of the bank, and automatic IVR telephone service, and also using the mobile phone with the help of the SMS by sending the SMS, and also this wireless application protocol technology, and also with the help of the bank's smartphone application. And the next one is the internet banking. Internet banking is a collective term for e-banking, online banking, virtual banking. That virtual banking means it operates only on the internet with no physical branches. So, and direct banking, web banking, and remote banking. So, all these kind of banking comprises into a single term called the internet banking. So, internet banking allows the customers of a financial institution or a bank to conduct various financial transactions on a secure website. So, operated by the direct banking institution. So, this is very fast and the most convenient way for performing any banking transaction. So, it enables the customers of a bank to conduct a wide range of financial transaction through its direct website, no other intermediaries. So, in fact, it is like a branch exclusively operating for an individual customer. So, each and every customer has its as their own customer ID. So, this internet banking operates for an individual customer exclusively, and the online banking system will typically connect to the core banking system, so operated by the customers themselves, that is the self-service banking. So some of the advantages of the internet banking are, so the payments are made at the convenience of the account holder, and the payments are more secured by with the help of the username and password. So that is, with the internet access, it can be used from anywhere in the world at any time, and any standard browser is enough for using the internet banking. So example for Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Opera Mini, so all these UC browser, so all these standard browser is more adequate, more enough for this internet banking, and this internet banking does not need any installation for additional software. So this is the most these are the most important advantage, and other one advantage is it provides complete control over all the banking demands, all the banking facilities to the customer in a single place. So these are the advantages of the internet banking. And the last topic of this chapter is the Unified Payment Interface, that is the UPI. So this UPI is a real-time payment system mainly developed by the National Payment Corporation of India. So mainly it is developed by the government for a secure transaction to facilitate the interbank transaction, which is more highly secure. So it is very simple user interface, and more secure and instant payment facility is available. So this interface is regulated, is controlled by the Reserve Bank of India, and is used for transferring funds instantly between two bank accounts through mobile devices. And unlike the traditional e-wallets, which take a specified amount of money from the user and store it in its own account, so UPI withdraws and deposits fund directly from the bank account. It doesn't have any intermediary wallets. So directly from the source bank account, sender's bank account, it debits and directly sends to the receiver bank account. So that is the advantage of the UPI. It also provides the peer-to-peer collect requests, which the peer-to-peer means user to user collect requests, which can be scheduled and paid as per the requirement and also as per the convenience. So, and also UPI is developed based on the basis of immediate payment service, IMPS. So to initiate a transaction, UPI application needs two type of address. One is a global and another one is a local. So global address includes the bank account numbers and IFSC code, all these details. Whereas the local address is a virtual payment address. So this UPI is all common. This BIM UPI is all common to the Bharat interface for money. So this BIM UPI is all common in all the applications, the current applications like Phone Pay, Google Pay, and so all these Paytm. So all these are common for this the BIM UPI. So and the virtual payment address VPA, also called as a UPI ID, is a unique ID similar to the email ID. Say for example, the name ID will be like a name at the bank name. So like that, UPI ID unique is created. Unique ID is created. It enables the user to send the and receive the money from multiple banks and prepaid payment issuers. So bank or the financial institution allows the customer to generate the VPA using the phone number or with the help of the existing Gmail account, or mostly with the mobile phone number. So that will be the more unique ID. So associated with the Aadhaar number and the bank account number. So VPA replaces the bank account details, thereby completely hides critical information. Some critical data like a bank account number or PIN number, all the data will be hidden, so that by using with the help of the VPA ID, the user can able to do all the financial transaction. And the MPIN, the mobile banking personal identification number, so is required to confirm the each payment. So whenever we do the transaction, financial transaction with the VPA, the MPIN is needed. So UPA allows operating multiple bank accounts in a single mobile application. So some UPI application also allows customers to initiate the transaction using only the Aadhaar number in the absence of VPA. So some of the advantages are immediate money transfer. So through the mobile device, round the clock of 24/7, and can also use single mobile application for accessing multiple bank accounts, and single click authentication for transferring of funds. So just the MPIN is needed. The mobile personal identification number only is needed, and it is not required to enter the details such as card number, account number, IFSC code for every transaction. Once a detail is stored means it can be used via the VPA. So the electronic payments will become much easier without requiring a digital wallet or a credit card or a debit card. All these payment system doesn't require. Just the VPA ID is more enough for transferring the funds. So in the next video, we will start with the next chapter. Thank you, students.